Hey guys, the Explorer of Horror here, the Horror Boy. Welcome back to some more videos, and today, kind of wanted to get back to the Why I Love series. I haven't done one in a minute, and I recently rewatched this movie, and I wanted to talk about it again, because I haven't discussed this movie in probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. This is my original reviews on these movies, which the quality was real bad on that review, so it's been a minute since I've rewatched this movie, and I want to talk about Scream 3 today. Now, Scream 3, probably the most hated one in the series. There are people that absolutely despise this movie. There are people that wish this movie was non-canon. There are people that will put this on their top worst sequels list. Not me. This is actually one of my favorite sequels out there. This is probably my favorite sequel of the Scream movies. And before all the fans have an outrage, I do like the second movie. I rewatched part 2. I rewatched 2 and 3 because I got into a Scream mood and I wanted to watch a couple Scream movies. So I rewatched Scream 2 and 3. And I like Scream 2 a little bit more from this recent rewatch, compared to the last time I watched Scream 2. I thought it was just okay. Rewatching Scream 2, though, I actually thought it was pretty good. I liked it. So I went through that movie, liked it. I do like that movie. I love the original Scream. And then I rewatched this movie, and it really held up to me. This one still, to me, is my favorite of the sequels. And I'll get into more reasons as to why in a second. I also do really enjoy Scream 4. I think Scream 4 is probably the second best of the sequels. I would say it's better than Scream 2. I guess how I'd rank it would be Scream 1, 3, then 4, then 2. But there's not a bad Scream movie, in my opinion. That's kind of why when I heard about Scream 5, I was kind of like, it's a big risk because this is a franchise where I enjoy all the movies. Like, I love the first one. Second one's pretty good. Third one I really enjoy. Fourth one I really enjoy. So, the fact that you don't have a bad movie, in my opinion, in the series is kind of why I was a little leery about them making a Scream 5. But Scream 3, reason I love it so much, reason why I put it over so much, reason why I always bring it up as a great movie, because I think it knows exactly what it is. This was made around a time where they didn't want to be extremely serious with this movie, which is why it kind of has this, and I've heard it from a few people, and maybe this is the random analogy just coming from me, but I got a Scooby-Doo vibe from this movie. And obviously there is no Scooby-Doo in this movie, but what I mean is that you have the cast, they're working together in this movie, trying to solve a mystery, and it plays out more like Scooby-Doo meets Scream, but in a way it's still a horror movie. It just kind of had that feel to it where they were having fun, and at the same time they were still doing interesting things, but this came out around a time where they didn't want it to be too serious. And this movie went through a lot of rewrites, I think mainly because of around the time this movie was being made, Columbine happened. And they wanted to make a movie that wasn't anywhere near Woodsboro or the high school, or, they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to take it to a new location. They also wanted to not make it so serious and so violent. So it ended up being more of a horror thriller comedy, which it's really not listed as that, because it's really not a comedy. It's just got a lighter tone than the first two movies, and even the fourth one. Like, those are all very, very serious movies with bits of humor here and there. This one goes more into the humor direction. I feel like that's maybe why it does get hated so much. But it also goes more into the entertainment direction. And there are ideas that the fans hate that I love. First of all, I used to say that I hated the ending. I hated the twist. Oh, it's so terrible. Yeah, the ending twist is far-fetched. And if you're watching this video and you haven't seen Scream 3 yet, go watch it. Spoiler alert. But I assume since most of you guys are watching this video, you guys have seen the ending of Scream 3. The ending doesn't bother me anymore. I used to say that it bothered me. It doesn't really bother me. And I think it's because the way they did it in the movie. It could have been something that was a disaster. You know, on paper it sounds terrible because on paper it doesn't make sense. But to me, the execution in the movie, I thought, made it work. It wasn't like the ending to most movies where it feels out of nowhere, it feels out of place. There's still, it doesn't really affect the timeline. I mean, really, honestly, the killer, of course, the twist is that you found this killer is the long-lost brother of Sidney, and he was the one that told Billy and the other guy to kill Sidney's mom in the first movie. The reason they killed her mom was because of what this guy, I think his name was Roman, what he did. Like, you know, he was the long lost son. He wanted revenge because his mother wasn't there for him, and you know, he planned everything out. This, from Scream 1 to this movie, he was the director of it all. He was behind it all. And some would say, and it's and for me saying it, it sounds bad. It sounds bad. But for some reason, to me, it worked in a way because this is Scream 3, so it would wrap everything together. It would connect the story, and the story in this movie is a heavy emphasis on the backstory of Sidney's mother's murder. And I thought it made sense for the trilogy aspect and what they were going for. It needed to have more twists. It needed to have more turns. And with it being a trilogy, it needed to come more full circle. So I thought it made sense as far as the ending goes. I used to say that I hated it. You can go back on my old video and see that I said that the ending was trash. But rewatching it again, it didn't really bother me. And I'm going to give you guys my honest opinion. I'm not going to get on here and lie. I'm not going to get on here and bullcrap and BS you guys. In my opinion, the ending doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't. It was something that I kind of just went along with because everybody else hated the ending. So I was like, yeah, I hate the ending too. But if I'm being honest, when I go back and I rewatched it again last night, it just didn't bother me. It didn't really seem out of place to me. It kind of fit because this is the third movie. And this is also the third movie. There's going to be more humor. There's going to be more self-aware jokes. It was really clever. I liked how it kind of poked fun at itself and how it brings up things like, you know, oh, the fans are really pissed off that Randy died in Stab 2, because that really happened. Scream 2 came out. The fans didn't like that Randy died in Scream 2, so they put that in this movie as a joke. That was pretty clever. I love the idea it takes place in Hollywood. That idea is so hated, it's so despised, and I don't get it. It really fits the Scream formula because the movies are about horror films. Horror films are made in Hollywood most of the time. And I thought it matched the series perfectly. And I like how in this movie it's more of a, like I said, it's more of a Scooby-Doo thing where you have multiple characters and they're each being focused on. And it's more about this mystery. Okay, who is this killer? How far does this killer go back in this timeline? And why is this killer killing people? Why is he doing it right now? I thought it was interesting because it wasn't just another copycat. It wasn't just like in Scream 2 where, oh, these killers are kind of loosely connected to the first two killers. It was done in a very clever way to where you didn't know who the killer was legitimately while you're watching this movie. I had no clue who the killer was. So the mystery I thought was pulled off very well. I will say this. Is it realistic to have a multiple voice changer? What do I mean by that? This killer has a voice box that can take people's voices and he can mimic people's voices. So they use that a lot in this movie. On one hand, yes, it is unrealistic. I'll give you that. I'm not going to lie about that. It is very far-fetched. I think far-fetched is the least amount term that you could use for this idea. But it was fun. It was new. It was interesting. I liked that. Yeah, it's not realistic. But to me, if a movie entertains me, I don't look at realism, man. Because there are movies out there that I hate because they're so realistic they end up being dull and boring. And this was fun. It was interesting. It was suspenseful because you didn't know if who was really talking was the real person or not. I liked that. It brought a new layer of suspense to me. And the movie still had a fair share of suspense. I wouldn't say as much as the other movies. It's much more going into the humorous direction. But it still has bits and pieces of suspense here and there. The music I thought was on point too. The usage of songs. I know there's a lot of Creed songs in this movie from what I was hearing, but it didn't bother me. If you hate Creed, you're gonna like hate the soundtrack because there is a few Creed songs in the soundtrack. But I'm a big fan of Creed, so that didn't really bother me. But you know, you got that early 2000s, late 90s kind of rock. Yeah, a little bit of rock in there, a little bit of everything in there. You know, good soundtrack, good score to the movie. I thought had some good pieces of music in there. The movie still shot well. Of course, Wes Craven directed the movie. I thought still did an amazing job directing this movie. It looked great. And to me, it was a lot better than Scream 2 because it didn't get boring like Scream 2. Like, to me, Scream 2, around the middle part of that movie is where it slows down for me. And it doesn't pick back up to the third act. Like, the first act, I was into. The last act, I was into. The second middle part of the movie, I thought got really slowed down. Whereas here, the movie is almost 2 hours long, and it still finds a way to be very fast-paced, very fast as far as editing goes, and the plot kind of moves along at a very nice flow, to where it doesn't end up being too long of a movie. At least as far as when you're sitting there and you're watching it, you don't really get bored while watching it. So I like that. The acting. I thought David Arquette, Courtney Cox, you know, you got Neve Campbell, you've got a lot of the people coming back. You even got an appearance by Jamie Kennedy in this movie playing Randy, which, again, is another scene that fans hate, but I ended up really loving. I thought it was one of the best scenes in the movie to me. So the cast from the original movies come back, and I like how it's not just Sidney in every single scene. It's, you know, you got your storyline with David Arquette, and you got the cast of Stab 3 and what's going on with them. And you've also got Dion Richmond from Hatchet. He's in this movie. He does a pretty good job. He's a pretty hilarious character. But I like that cast. I like the girl who is playing, you know, Gail in the movie. And, you know, I'm Gail. No, you're Gail. Yeah, I'm Gail. I like that little dynamic between her and Courtney Cox. They both had a great chemistry. Just their scenes together I thought were really well done. They had great chemistry. They made a good duo in this movie. And David Arquette did a great job. I would say David Arquette and Courtney Cox are more of the leads because I would say more of the movie focused on them than Sidney. But I thought Neve Campbell was still in the movie enough. It wasn't like she was in one scene and not in there anymore. She was still there. It was just much more about the entire cast and what's going on with the entire cast. And these characters are going through different things at different times. So it's much more of a wide array as far as focusing on the cast, which I enjoyed that. And, you know, you had Dewey and you had Gail doing things and, you know, really big parts of the story, which I enjoyed. The killer, I thought, was still, still pretty mysterious. I will say, I want to wait. I'll say that for the problems. But I will say the killer does talk more in this movie than I think any other Scream movie, which is very noticeable because you're not really used to it. It's different. I appreciate it, but it was just weird because you're not used to Ghostface talking this much. But I guess to make it different, to add more personality to the killer, they made him talk more. But there's a few ideas for the death scenes I don't mind, like a giant house explosion I thought was extremely well done and practical and was just filmed very, very well. And you even see a shot of the inside of the house and the dude's just standing there and he just gets, like, the house just blows up and he gets engulfed in the explosion. Like, the shot was really well done and it wasn't CGI, it was actually real. And that scene I thought was pretty cool. The scene where the the girl is in this room and there's a bunch of ghost face costumes everywhere. One of them comes to life and is the killer and it kills her. That was a cool looking scene. So the deaths, some of the ideas I enjoyed, some of the cameos I really enjoyed. Like you've got you got a really hilarious cameo by Jay and Silent Bob, and it was hilarious. And that to me was like an instant point in the good category, because I was like, yes, like the fact they just did that, the fact they know this is Scream 3 and they're just going totally insane with this movie. The fact they did that gained so many cool points for me, because it was such a really awesome cameo. It was a hilarious cameo as well. But you also got a cameo by Carrie Fisher in there. You've got cameos by just an insane amount of people. Lance Hendrickson, one of the guys from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, the first one. I think he played Raphael or Leonardo. I can't remember who he played, but he played one of the turtles in the first Ninja Turtles movie. Lot of cameos in this movie, and clever dialogue. The script I thought was very well done. I don't think it was written by Kevin Williamson. It was written by Aaron Kruger. So it wasn't written by Kevin Williamson. And the script did go through a bunch of rewrites. I think it went through just a rapid paced production with this movie. So that's the positives for me, man. Just a really fast-paced movie. And it's almost 2 hours long. So the fact that it's a fast-paced movie I thought was really cool. Some of the shots I really thought were good-looking. Like there's a shot of a knife flipping in the air going upstairs to David Arquette. And I like how in most horror movies the knife would go in the head, but here the butt of the knife hits him in the head and just knocks him down the stairs. That to me was clever. The just outside shots, cool idea of like having a set look like Sydney's house, and she goes into the room and she has a flashback to the first movie. That stuff was really cool. All the callbacks to their previous movies was really cool. Again, another scene that people absolutely hate that I absolutely love is where Randy's sister, and I will admit, she kind of pops up out of nowhere. She's just there. Somehow she knew exactly where they were. She just pops up and I got this tape for you guys to watch. And how did Randy know there was going to be another killer? Like, there's so many questions, but I did love the scene because the scene had both a haunting feeling and it was a feeling of, hey, like that's a character from the previous movies. We're seeing him again, you know, and it was Randy's tape he leaves behind, you know, saying basically I didn't make it, and if there's another killer, he's going to try and make a trilogy. Here's the rules. To me, just a really good scene. The acting, the music, the way it was done, I thought it was pulled off pretty well, in my personal opinion. That's one of my favorite scenes in this movie. As far as anything else goes, I think that's about it for positives. I mean, just to me, a really good roller coaster ride of a film. Entertaining, short, as far as just, not really short, but a fast-paced, longer movie. The cast, the acting, the ideas, how it knows it's a sequel, it's a part 3, so it's not taking itself 100% seriously. Like, I can appreciate that because even they know it's a part 3. Like, you know, what else were people expecting, really? But, as far as negatives go, there are a few. I will admit it's not a flawless movie. I don't think it's as good as the first movie, but I do think it's the best of the sequels to me. But if I did have to go to the negatives, it feels like this movie just had a more rushed production. Like, some of the dialogue does feel weird at certain points, as far as delivery goes, as far as just the writing of a certain line goes. Some of it felt a little weird and a little off. Some things did feel like they were just kind of wung in there just to be there, you know, just, oh, here's something crazy, here's something crazy. The red herrings I thought were really obvious in this movie. Like, everybody trying to be super creepy and super obvious, and I was like, okay, that's not the killer, that's not the killer. Like, so the red herrings were pretty obvious in this movie. As far as the kills go, there's not really any gore in this movie. And I think that's it really does hurt the movie in a way, because the first movie is pretty brutal. Maybe not tremendously gory, but you do have a scene where a guy gets his intestines cut out. And in the second movie, it felt brutal too. I mean, you have a girl in the theater, she realizes it's a killer, he just stabs her multiple times. Or the guy in the bathroom stall gets stabbed right to the head through the stall. So Scream 2 is pretty bloody as well. Then you get to this movie, there's not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of gore. I'll even say Scream 4 had more blood, because that one was actually probably the most brutal as far as the kills go. But this one, very bloodless. There's blood in there, but it's not a very gory movie. And it was done because of the fact that, you know, when this was being made, they didn't want to be extremely violent and extremely dark, so they went to a more, you know, lighter direction, more comedic-ish direction. And they wanted to avoid really violent stuff in this movie. So there is death scenes, most of it's just basic, though. People just getting stabbed once. Like, you know, one of the people gets stabbed in the back and the frying pan hit over his head. Then he just kind of falls over and dies. Dion Richmond gets, like, thrown out of a window. Most of it just people getting stabbed. Very generic. Just, stab. That's basically all it is. I will also say the opening wasn't as good as the first two, or even the fourth one. Because the fourth one, you have all the different Stab movie openings. You know, Stab 7, time travel, and stuff like that. The first movie, you had the Drew Barrymore opening, which I thought was one of the most iconic openings in horror film history. Then you have Scream 2, which I will admit has another one of those iconic film openings. You know, the two people go into the theater. One, they're showing Stab. One person gets killed. The girl thinks it's her boyfriend, but it's really not, and she gets killed. Goes up to the screen, screams, and falls, and then Scream 2. That opening I thought was really well done. Here, it's the Cotton Weary character. He gets killed off. Him and his girlfriend get killed off. There wasn't really much to it. It was maybe a little bit of suspense because the voice changer aspect. It just wasn't as good as the first two movie, or even the fourth movie's opening. It just wasn't as clever to me. Besides that, though, I don't really think there's any other problems. At least any that's coming to mind right now. But overall, I do enjoy this movie quite a bit, and I've always wanted to discuss it more in depth, more in detail. And rewatching the other night made me want to get back on here and talk about Scream 3 once again, because it is a very hated movie. I don't get it. I will never get it. I've always been a supporter of this movie ever since I first seen it. People have hated that. I've said, hey, I like Scream 3, and people have hated me for saying that, or people will ask me, what's your favorite of the series? I always go, well, Scream 1's my favorite, but they say, what's your favorite sequel of the series? I'm like, probably Scream 3. You're like, what? Scream 4, bro? Scream 2? I love those movies too, but Scream 3 is my favorite of the sequels. It's just a fun movie, a blast, entertaining. I can go on and on, man. Scream 3. Why I love Scream 3? It's a fun time, entertaining, it knows what it is, clever, still well written in my opinion, still well directed, well acted. Scream 3 is definitely a kick-ass sequel in my opinion. But anyways, guys, definitely let me know your guys' thoughts on Scream 3 in the comments below. Do you guys enjoy it? Do you not? Let me know. Again, this is all opinion-based. No facts here, just opinion. But anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a good night. And Halloween's coming up, so have a happy October. And I'll see you guys in the next review. The Explorer 4 is out. Peace!